What? You're using reference? Bro, you're such a loser! Real artists draw from imagination and skill. What a low-life cheater, bro.
Action!
Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and today I want to talk about using references. Whether it's drawing, storyboarding, or animation, or any other art form, using reference is integral to the work that I do to give my work a bit more believability and truth. So just to get it out of the way, I think reference is super important, whether you're a skilled artist or a beginning artist. I think if you want to go into the professional field, reference is a must. Now, is it wrong to not use reference? Absolutely not, because I also think it's valuable to train the mind on how to use your critical thinking skills when drawing from scratch. But to even build that mental library, it comes from overall experience, mileage, but also studying from life and reference. I think the most common use of a reference is a still image, whether it's photographs, illustration, drawing guides and tips, other forms of images. These are single images that you can find on a Google image search. We have that power. Nowadays, however, you might be stumbling upon AI generated imagery, and it's something you might want to be careful about if you're looking for authenticity, unless you want to use that as reference. So for this video, I want to talk about the reference that I personally use and that I enjoy using. And I want to talk about things that I personally recommend, and that these were recommended to me by others in the animation industry as well, and the productions that I've been involved with. Whether you want to use the reference for study purposes or you want to use the reference directly with your creative project, here are some that I would personally recommend. So let's talk about live action reference, photographs, featuring real people, etc. I like to study from live action footage or video in general over still images. The thing that live action footage beats over still images is that the video is captured in the moment, whereas stills may have poses that feel fabricated. Like, what I mean is that if you were to search for a specific pose on Google, you would get a model acting out the pose rather than doing the pose or doing the action. If you were to take a still frame of a live action footage with the actor or performer doing the move, there are already hints of weight and motion through visual hints like cloth and hair flowing or how much weight there is on the body. You can also look at character attitudes or acting. If I don't like this pose, I can go to a different frame of that same footage. And to study movement, you can flip through this frame by frame. On YouTube, you can flip through the frames of a footage by pressing the comma and dot keys if you just want to study motion frame by frame. This is how I do my live action studies. Let's talk about Sketchfab. Sketchfab is a 3D resource site where users can upload and download 3D models or 3D assets built by members of the community. You can download and purchase 3D models from here. I feel like Sketchfab is pretty underrated when it comes to reference. Scrolling on Sketchfab is my favorite resource for reference. I use this when I need reference for drawing things in certain angles. I just find the reference I need, scroll through different 3D models to see what best fits my project. You don't have to buy the 3D models. You can click whatever you want and just preview it in their little preview box. Now, when I was working on Dusk's Flight, I had to draw one of the character's head in multiple angles, a dragon head. So I would type on Sketchfab for existing 3D dragon heads and find what feels useful for my reference. And then I would rotate it around, find angles that I find difficult to draw. And if you just wanted to study drawing things in different angles, you can just find whatever 3D model you want to study on Sketchfab and just rotate and just sketch from there. You don't even have to buy or download them. If I feel like I need a quick set or background for my animation test or storyboards, I would just screen cap a 3D model of a set that I could find, whether it's a 3D scan of a real life place or it's a set built by other people. It's just something for me to work off of, and then I could draw over it and make my own adjustments. If you just want to practice storyboarding or animation, you could just take a background from Sketchfab and just use that as your background element. If you want to get into TV storyboard action, most of these productions have 3D sets that story artists can use for their sequences. In fact, it's pretty much a standard. When I started working on a show like Invincible, which is a superhero action show that had dynamic action and characters with close to real life proportions, I started using physical figures like action figures. In fact, I have one on my desk. So yeah, it's like having a non-digital version of Sketchfab. Sometimes the poses are too hard to draw from imagination, or I wanted to be as accurate as possible, so I would pose out the figure myself and hold it by hand and just sketch it from there. I'm not someone that collects figures or toys, but now that I'm using it like this, I can see the artistic benefit for myself. If collecting physical reference is a bit too much, you could learn a bit of 3D, download some rigs and pose them yourself for reference. Up to you, it's not something that I prefer, but that's another option. Instead of just still images or illustration, I like to look at movie stills. If I'm sketching a story beat or a scenario with characters interacting with each other, I look for movie references to have a similar scene. Movie scenes contain ideas for staging, mood, lighting, tone, and overall cinematography. Since I work in animation, storyboarding, and film, it's my favorite type of reference since it gives me an idea for context and vibe, just a reference instead of just a visual image. I like to look at a sequence from a movie, think about that scene as a whole, and look at shots all together to see how these shots contribute to the storytelling. Kind of like why I favor video over stills. The actors and performers aren't just posing out and acting out for a single snapshot, they're captured right in the moment while they're doing their scene and performance. I like to look at various animation resource sites. When I was a teenager, animation resources were pretty scarce. Now, it's pretty much everywhere. If I was a teenager learning how to animate, I wished we had a site like Sakugaburu. Not only does it feature resources and references from anime, but Western productions as well. You can find reference for character animation, effects, acting, or production materials in general. Sites like Character Design Reference is also really cool, contains resources from existing productions, as well as collections for drawing guides, anatomy designs, interviews with other artists. Creative Uncut is a site that I used a lot too, contains concept art from video games, another great place to find inspiring stuff from video games. Sete Dreams is a website that has collected model sheets, sete, amongst other production materials from anime productions worth studying from. Now what if I just can't find the reference I need? Sometimes I just have to make it myself. Whether it's collecting resources myself or I shoot myself acting out the scene and then use that as reference. Because sometimes I might need to be a little more specific with my vision, with my reference. Sometimes I'll thumbnail and explore sketches of what my animation could be, but that takes a lot of work and energy. If I've already shot the reference that contains the exact thing that I need, I don't need to do a lot of that. Sure, I might have to adjust the drawings a bit from the reference, but a lot of the creative and decision making is solved through that reference. When I was working on Blue Eye Samurai, I had to come up with animation tests for each of the 4 main characters. Subtle animation where there's not a lot of movement is kind of tricky. There's not a lot of exaggeration. So I had to shoot what Blue Eye Samurai was referencing a lot, which is live action and real life. I recorded myself doing some of these acting choices that I envisioned for each character. And when I act out these references, it's really just me trying to think about the mechanics of what my body is doing, the timing, more so than just copying and tracing my video reference. If you just want to practice drawing without constantly searching for reference, go outside and do some cafe sketches. There's a reason why many professionals tell you to go out and draw from real life. There's a lot of nuances that you can capture from real life that you can't just get from finding reference or trying to come up with things from imagination. It builds muscle memory, and it trains you to think about capturing the reference at that certain time. Drawing a figure just casually standing or doing mundane things is tricky. Drawing from life and building that observation skills helps build that. So I want to wrap this video up by saying reference is often underrated. Sometimes it's seen as a hack or a cheat or a crutch. But gathering good reference, there is an art to it. It's work. And you have to be critical about the things that you're referencing. So while it may solve a lot of problems when it comes to drawings while you're using reference, coming up with the right reference is also a daunting task. Sometimes I find myself not using reference because I'm just lazy to find reference, but forcing myself to find the right reference and really utilize that reference not only has built up my skills in drawing, but it makes me appreciate the things that's outside of my imagination. I think using reference is a choice, but if you're one of those people that say using reference is bad, you should avoid it, it makes you a weak artist, you're a real idiot. Anyways, that's all, bye. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.